All right, guys, we'll get started. So today's call, first of all, I'm not Chris McCarty. It says I am. I'm not. We just created a KREIA meeting for Zoom because if you're on yesterday's call, there's a 40-minute limit that's like back. I didn't know it was going to be back, and I always log in early, so I killed our clock and I had to create a new one, and we lost half the group. But it was a fun call. Joe Worth was awesome. Joe Worth's on here today. So today's topic is it's funny now, but it wasn't back then. So the idea is I want people to be able to learn from your mistakes. I think there's going to be a lot of funny stuff. I mean, like the stories I know. So I've Joe Worth has one. I talked to Frank. But the idea is I want you guys to, like, I can turn on your webcam and your mic, and you guys can tell a story. So if you want to talk, send me a private message, just kind of explaining the story. Because I don't want anything too racy or anything that could get us in trouble. Great time to note, all these opinions are our own and not necessarily KREIA's, even though I say I'm Chris McCarty right now. But Frank, we'll start with you. Frank probably is full of many, many stories. Frank slept over 500 houses, former KREIA president, current board member, believe investor, trainer, coacher. Everybody knows Frank. Frank, tell us a funny story.
So, Rob, you want me to start with the Lake Forest one?
Well, no, end with Lake Forest because I'm going to tell my version of Lake Forest on the other side.
Okay. So I'll start with, let me see if I can share my screen real fast.
Gosh, you are more tech advanced than I am at this point then.
Share computer.
For me, it shows a green thing that says share my screen.
Yeah, I got that. I'm trying to figure out how I can pull up my other window I have open.
Oh, shoot. Guys, I really was excited. I downloaded a background for today. Shoot.
You didn't get it going?
No. I'm going to see if I can do it while you're telling the story, though. Yeah, I thought it was really funny.
All right. All right, let me try this and see if it works. Screen, whiteboard, iPhone, host attendee.
Too many choices?
No, I don't see the one that I have. So I'm trying to pull up the PVA that I have pulled up on my other link. And whenever it gives me the choices, it's only showing me screen, whiteboard, or iPhone.
Does anybody know the GIF or the meme that this is from? It's this dog that's sitting and drinking his coffee right here. And he's like, everything's fine. Like this.
Hey, how'd you off topic real fast? How'd you figure out how to do that? I've been trying to do that.
Okay, so I'm an idiot too. So I went online and I went to there's a Twitter feed and it's called Zoom backgrounds, and it's people just post funny ones they found, and so I couldn't get that to work. So then I just Googled Zoom backgrounds, and then I found this one, and I was like, oh, this is funny. So I thought it was funny.
Because I tried to download a house one and try to put it on there, and it wouldn't work.
Well, you can come on over and I'll fix it for you, Frank.
All right. Virtually?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So let's start. So first story that I got. So I guess it was about 7 or 8 years ago. So I got a friend of mine into the business, and we had done probably a couple properties together. So if you guys want to take a look at this, I'll give you some of the info so that way you can actually pull up the history of the property. So the address was 41. So it's 41. So this was in Shively. So me and a friend of mine, we ended up partnering up on the deal. So we went to the foreclosure sale here locally in Jefferson County. And the reason why whenever I teach some of our students, when we mentor people, to stay away from that early in the beginning stages is because you don't know what you're getting into. Because with foreclosures, basically it's just drive-by only, and you cannot see the inside of the properties, and some of them were vacant, some of them were occupied, so you're kind of figuring out, it's kind of like a hit or miss. So the crazy thing about this deal here, so we went to the foreclosure sale, and obviously we were seasoned investors, so it didn't hurt us as bad as if it would have a new person. So we bought this property sight unseen at the foreclosure sale. We paid $28,000 for it. It was a 3-bedroom brick house with a basement and a 2-car garage. Sounds like a good deal. So from the outside of the property, it looked like a good deal. Okay. So then the day we buy it, the next day we go over to the property. It looks vacant. The electric shut off. The water shut off. So we try to enter the property, and then we see there was a lot of belongings kind of through the windows. So come to find out, long story short, this guy that had lost the property in foreclosure, he was somewhat of an alcoholic. He had been living there for 9 years with no electric and no water. So you can just imagine an individual living in a property with no electric and no water for 9 years. So we finally got access to the property. He let us in. And as soon as we walked into the living room, there was newspaper everywhere on the floor in the living room. So we're like, what is this for? So the guy that had been living there since he had no electric, no water, he had been using the bathroom as number 2 on the newspaper in the living room on the floor, just like an animal. Okay, so it gets better. So then we walk to the bathroom. So we go in the bathroom, and the vanity, so the sink was still intact, but you couldn't see the sink because when you look down at the vanity bowl, there was hair about yay high stacked all the way up the vanity, up the wall, from where he had been just trimming his beard with scissors. So he had all this hair just stacked up in the vanity. And then you turn to the other side of the bathroom, and then in the bathtub was fully full of cigarette butts, all the way up to the top of the bathtub. So the basement was flooded, all that good stuff. So the crazy thing is you never know what you're getting if you don't look at the properties actually, or get someone else to look at them for you. So we bought that property for $28,000. We had it for about 8 months. We cleaned it out. My partner got sick from cleaning it out, from all the male feces everywhere. And we ended up selling it for $32,000. So we ended up losing about $4,000 on that. And it was a big learning experience. So that's why I try to tell people, hey, if you can't really get into the property, it might not be a good idea to buy it outright. You might be able to put a contract on it and then negotiate getting inside. But that's kind of one of the crazy stories that I've come across over the past years I've been doing real estate.
So lesson learned, unless you're a seasoned investor, don't take those kind of risk on early on.
Has anybody that is on the call today ever experienced anything similar to that, where there has been an individual using the restroom number 2 on the floors?
No, I haven't, but Ian Hooper, I just sent him a text. I was like, Ian Hooper I think that story is one of the most funny stories I've ever heard. And I would love if he could come on and tell that story about buying that house.
You're talking about the one he bought in Portland?
Yeah, I think that would be like, I was dying laughing. So I literally just sent him a text like, hey, I really wish you would come on here and tell that story. No, and Stacy Duvall, you might have heard of her. She wants to know how you got him out. I mean, did you buy it vacant at least?
Actually, we gave him cash for keys. He would walk from his house. He lived in Shively, not too far from Gard's Lane, where 41. So he would walk back and forth from the house to the liquor place where you could sit inside a little bar or whatever. And we ended up finding him that way. So we ended up just giving him cash for keys. I think we ended up giving him like $3,000 or $4,000 just to get out. And I'm sure that $3,000 or $4,000 was gone pretty quickly.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it works. But people have been taking way worse losses on houses that they bought sight unseen. So you kind of lucked out on that one. Tell them about your Lake Forest.
You start that one.
Okay. Well, my end of things is way different than Frank's because Frank reached out to me and said, "Hey, Rob, will you send it out to your list?" I sent it out to my list. We had, I think, 8 people see it in the first hour. That we sent it out at, I don't know, I want to say like 260 or something like that. And we ended up going under contract at 257. Now, Frank had bought this property at the commissioner's sale, correct, Frank?
Yes.
Yeah. But he had too many other projects. And this house was huge. I mean, what was it, like 6,000 square feet or something?
It was a big one.
Okay. Now, guys, all of this is hearsay. We don't know officially if any of this is true. And we're not in a state where you necessarily have to disclose anything like this. But Frank, you know more about the basement than I do. So why don't you tell the story on your end, and I'll corroborate if I've heard the same thing.
And then you'll jump in?
Yeah.
So when was this? Last year?
I think it's been a little
years?
over a year and a half, probably. Yeah.
Okay. So this is one of the most recent ones. So most recent, um, we bought a house at the commissioner sale again. Or no, this wasn't the commissioner sale. Sorry, Rob. This was actually an auction that was on site. It was Billy Collins auction service. He called me up a couple days before the auction and said, "Hey, Frank," he goes, "we got this house in Lake Forest." He said, "It's in a great neighborhood, but it needs a whole lot of work." He said, "This would be a perfect house for you if you're interested." So literally, I was at dinner with the Branch brothers. They took me out to dinner to the Ruth Chris one night. So we were hanging out networking, right? So while we're at dinner, the auction starts, and I'd sent one of my students from Believe to go to the on-site auction at Lake Forest and start bidding for us. So I'm on the phone, sitting at Ruth Chris or Jeff Ribby's, wherever we were at, with the Branch brothers, talking on the phone to the Believe student that's there bidding on the property. I'd never seen the inside of the property again. So supposedly she walked through the property and did a quick video before we started bidding, before the auction started. And it was probably one of the worst houses I've ever seen in a neighborhood to that magnitude. So you think about this, you're talking about a $450,000 to $550,000 house that's just in horrible condition. And supposedly the auctioneer told me there was like 14 or 15 cats that lived in the property. There was just all kinds of urine smell. I mean, it was pretty bad. What did you think of the inside of it, Rob?
The feedback I kept on getting is like, there's a lot of used condoms in this house, just sitting on the floor. There was a lot of the flooring had already been pulled up, so it was just on the base, or not baseboards. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the words, but just all the flooring been pulled up. Yeah, it was crazy, and it was such a big house that it was just a crazy amount of work.
Yeah. So long story short, so we ended up deciding to, after we bid on it and we bought it, we ended up having to borrow private money on it because we paid like $240, $250, whatever the number was. So we ended up borrowing private money. We cleaned the basement out. The basement was halfway finished. It had mowed all through the property. I mean, it was super rough. So we'd clean the basement out at least. And then I called up Rob. I said, "Hey, man," I was like, I think we just want to wholesale this property. I was like, "This is too big of a rehab for us since we got like 10 or 12 already going on." I said, "Would you be willing to send this out to your clients?" And Rob, you take it away from there.
Oh yeah, so it went really great. Like we said, we had 8 people in the first hour. Two offers, one sight unseen offer that we didn't really want to take because we wanted them to see how much work it was. So long story short, we closed it, picked up some of my best and favorite clients, and Eric and Brett. They put, I want to say, about 100K in. And we resold it for $499. But that's not where the story ends. So we started getting these anonymous calls from random numbers. I was working with Katie No at the time. She would get calls at like 7 o'clock at night and be like, "I'm going to tell the buyers what happened in the house." Well, guys, there's more reasons why this house got terrible. And okay. So allegedly, all hearsay, that when they found the guy's body, he was sitting there. Some have said that he killed himself. Some say he drank himself to death. It's kind of the same thing anyway, but he's sitting there. And then they found a full-size German Shepherd in the freezer. And then there was another dog. And the dog that was living was eating the guy in the basement. Because, that's what dogs will do. So they had to put the dog down. So this is all hearsay. So we get these phone calls like, "We're going to tell the buyer what happened." And we don't have to disclose if someone died in the house. Plus, it's all hearsay anyway. But, like, we called our broker and it's like, what do we do? And he's like, "Well, if they're being a coward and being anonymous, then don't worry about it." But the house got egged when we had it listed too. Like, there was just a bunch of like weird stuff. Clients made 6 figures on it. That was their first big flip too. I wouldn't start with projects that big, but they did a great job on it. And they were new too. So they were using like Home Depot, Lowe's fixtures too on a $500,000 house. So we're doing another one in Indian Hills, and that one's going to make about the same spread, but they're doing a little bit of different fixtures and whatnot. But
Yeah,
no,
the good thing about that story too is that that's kind of how it was a win-win-win situation for everyone, because we ended up buying it, we wholesaled it to your clients, you brought us the clients, they ended up fixing the property up, and I think Brett did a lot of work himself too.
yeah, he does. I think they tiled the whole kitchen. Yeah.
So then they ended up making good money on it. So the cool thing about that is that, you know, it's basically a win-win for everyone. And now you've got those clients that you've probably some of your best clients now.
Well, yeah, one of my best clients, and they kill it, and they're doing such cool stuff too that I get to benefit by just learning what they're doing or what they're reading, and that's why I like hanging out with the Joe Worths, the Luke Neubauers, like all those guys, Brad Rue. They're all just crazy, and like they're all learning the branch. I mean, everybody, and it's awesome, and yeah, it's been really good. And
so on that story, I didn't lose money. I ended up making $8,000, so that was better than losing money, especially since it was a big rehab project.
Yeah, so that was good. Frank, we're going to move over to Joe Worth. Joe, I'm putting you on. Or you put yourself on. Good. You're on. You're live.
Am I on?
Sort of. We can't see you, but we can hear you. There we go.
It's warming up. There we go.
Man, you look like a new kid on the block.
I am the new kid on the block.
Can you tilt it? There you go. Perfect.
I have a lot of stories. Obviously, they're not as interesting and crazy like Frank's are. But this is a small one, a mistake I made. I shared it yesterday. When we bought our first investment property, we bought it for $171, and then we got a letter from the PBA office asking what the value of our property was. Well, when we bought the property, it appraised for $185. So I was like, no, it's worth more than that. So I ended up sending them the appraisal for $185, and now we get taxed at $185 instead of the $171. So that's a small mistake that I made. If anybody ends up going through the same process, don't send your appraisal, because none of that stuff is recorded. Unless you send the appraisal, then they'll record it, and then you get taxed at that rate. So we took the little hit there. I've fronted a contractor money before. Frank will kill me for this. This happened recently, actually. I was able to get a electrician he was supposed to pull a permit for me. And so I wrote him a check so he could pull the permit. He ends up cashing the check, never pulled the permit. So that's just a mistake for anybody out there listening. Never front your contractor's money, even if it's like someone who's licensed, because you never know what they're going to do with it. If you are going to front them a check, make sure you put that check on hold until the permit's pulled. Then you can release the check. What else? I mean, we have an Airbnb right now. We just finished up right around the time that the coronavirus hit. So that's a mistake we made. Obviously, we're having to readjust what we're going to be doing with the property now. We're looking into sticking some traveling nurses in there short term until everything clears and the Airbnb market picks up again. But those are just a few of the mistakes I made. Probably the biggest mistake we've made, which I shared this yesterday. It was a financial mistake, but now it's turned into more of a motivation for us. We put $30,000 worth of education on credit cards for real estate, and didn't see the value out of it. And we didn't really get started, get a lot of traction in real estate until we started working with Frank and his mentoring class. So for anybody out there, just be careful.
So question for you, Joe. So what made you pay that electrician up front? We lost him.
He's definitely frozen.
See if you can unclick him and click him back on.
All right, I stopped his video.
While you're looking for Joe, I'll just tell you I did the same. Oh, there he is. Go ahead, Joe.
I think I got cut out. I don't remember what I was talking about when I got
cut
out.
I asked the question, what made you, without mentioning names, what made you end up paying that contractor up front?
So we have a really big project going on right now. We're rewiring a whole house, and all the licensed electricians that I found to rewire the house were charging, $18,000, $20,000 to do it. So I found somebody who would do it labor-wise for $5,000, and we were buying all the material. So I just needed the permits pulled so that we can get temporary service over there. And so I found a licensed electrician who said he would do the permit, and he never pulled the permit. I think he just got cold feet, didn't pull it, and then he ended up cashing our check. So
did you ever contact him back and say, hey, I need my money?
he blocked my phone number.
But what happened to him? I mean, I recently saw on a board where someone was asking for an electrician. Joey's like, don't use that guy. Like,
yeah, well, okay, so he screwed us over. So now he's got a reputation, and I'm making sure everybody that is considering using him doesn't use him because of that. So I think that's an important lesson is the real estate network is very small. It seems big, but it's small. Everybody knows everybody in some regard. So if you have a contractor who's going to screw you over, word's going to get around. Other investors aren't going to want to use them anymore.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear. You can try to do well by everybody, but man, if you get a reputation, like, I mean, we all know people that have that issue, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Two people are asking what his name is.
Why don't you, Joe, are you have the capability of chat to them privately?
Yeah, he does.
Why don't you do that?
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, and actually, and that's a good point, because to your point about someone who's done it in the past. So I have an electrician I have 3 electricians, and I have one, I did the same thing, Joe, but it wasn't my first time with him. He's done many big major rewires, and he does excellent work, but he's always job to job, right? And so material, and so I usually would give him some upfront money. Well, I did it on a job that was a big job, and man, he killed my schedule. He disappeared. I mean, he went off the radar. I mean, I went to his house. I couldn't find him. Finally, he came back, and it was just a rough time for him. Well, the problem was, I'm not only out that money, the whole thing. I mean, and the permit was pulled. I couldn't get any, talk about creating problems. So needless to say, I've changed my requirements with him on how I pay. And I really work with my contractors, always have, and always try and take care of them. But boy, that can bite you. And so now the interesting part about this, I ran into a longtime investor over at Lowe's here about 6 months ago. And I was just saying, man, the electricians are killing me right now. And we got into a conversation, come to find out that electrician had killed him. And this was like several years before.
Yeah.
And in the same way. So that doesn't change is the point. So we're just having to be real wise in how we work with him, but he does great work. But, contractors that, they have their issues like we all do. And sometimes even when you think you've got their trust, and you just have to be careful. So just a heads up, even for all of us nice guys out there who try and take care of people.
Yeah, I can say too, another mistake that I've learned is try to do as few draws as possible, because some contractors, if you give them draws, they're going to take longer to do it, because they're only going to do enough work till they get paid. And then once they're, that money's running out, then they're going to start doing more work till they get paid. So make sure you try to bid things out where, you're paying them for their, labor, whatever, but they get maybe one draw halfway through and then one draw final. Don't try to break it up into like 3, 4, 5 draws, because then they're just going to take longer to do it. They're less motivated to get it done quicker.
But we also had somebody, kind of like Joe's situation. We had somebody that joined the Believe class, I guess, 2 years ago. And they had, without going into specifics, they actually hired a contractor, and the contractor asked for half down for the whole project up front. And they gave them, I think, $15,000. And then the project never got completed, and that person never showed back up. So they ended up having to hire another contractor. So obviously they were already $15,000 over budget.
And that can kill you if you don't build by right.
Mm-hmm.
So Rob, somebody just sent me a private chat. I forgot totally about this other deal. So I bought a house last year in Fern Creek. All these areas I'm talking about, you would not think that this kind of stuff happens. Lake Forest, now Fern Creek. So same scenario, bought a property sight unseen on the inside. So hopefully what you guys walk away today from is hearing what I'm saying and others is make sure you either put a house under contract and then get someone to go inside of it for you, one of your team members, or actually try to get inside before you physically close, because this is another sight unseen deal. And if I wasn't an experienced guy and been around for a while, this could sink some new people. So we bought a house in Fern Creek. Same situation. The guy had been squatting there for 8 or 9 years. His mom and dad passed away, and he inherited the house. So I don't know why I get these guys that live in these houses with no electric and no water. So this guy was there for about 7 years with no electric and no water. So I finally found him in the garage working on a car after we bought the house in foreclosure. So he let us in the house. It had 4 foot of water in the basement, full furniture everywhere in the basement, just floating. Okay, and he's been living there like that. So he walks us, keep in mind there's no electric, no water. So he starts walking us through the kitchen, and I was in there by myself, so I was kind of a little freaked out. So it was pitch dark. You see where he's sleeping on the couch and stuff in the living room. So then I turned to go down the hallway, and I look in the first bedroom. The first bedroom, there was 2 big propane tanks hooked up to jumper cables. And he had been using the propane tanks and the jumper cables to heat the house. So then I go on down further into the hallway and turn to the master bedroom. There's black soot everywhere, over the walls, the ceilings, and everything. So needless to say, I was like, okay, I've seen enough. And I kind of said, hey, I'll be back and talk to you later. And I left just because it was a dangerous situation with him having propane tanks hooked up to jumper cables that could possibly at any time just kind of go up. So same scenario, we ended up hiring we hired a U-Haul truck for him, helped him move out, whatever he wanted. And then luckily we got him out of there, but I guess probably the first 2 or 3 weeks we started working on the property, he kept coming back and breaking in. So luckily we got it all secured and locked up, but you know, those are just some crazy stories from being in this business that you see day in and day out, especially if you're not doing your research.
Lisa is asking, where would you suggest we start if not foreclosures?
Personally, I would reach out to wholesalers. Joe's a great guy. He wholesales a lot of properties. Rob has a ton of people on his list that does wholesales, but I would first reach out to wholesalers, or if you're looking at maybe some type of auctions that are on-site auctions, that way you can physically see the properties on site. Those are probably some of the best scenarios to get started with.
I've got a little one to share with you.
Sure.
And I think this is, all of you guys who've been out there for a while can relate to it, but I've never really had it happen the way it did. And this has been recent. I pulled up to a house that was, that was a wholesale house, wholesaler's house. And, but I pulled up and it was like, man, this looks like somebody's in it. I called the wholesaler. No, hey, it's cleared out. It's cleared out. I guess where I'm going to go with this is trust your gut, right? So I went, all right. So I go ahead, lockbox on the side. I go in, and I just knew. You know how you just know. I'm like, man, this just feels like somebody's here. And I announce myself. I come in, hello, you know, da 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 da. So I go up to the kitchen and I go in, and it just feels like somebody's there. Well, then I pull back this curtain in the hallway, and I can see the bedroom doors are shut. And I'm announcing myself. I do not want to sneak up on someone, right? Well, then I move a little, I hear a shuffle in one of the rooms. I'm like, oh man, this is not good. At that time, this guy comes out, and sure enough, there were people living in the house. And it could have been a bad situation. I just said, oh, hey, sorry to bother you. And he said, are you with so-and-so? I don't know what the deal was. I said, no, I was just looking at the house, but I'm out of here. And of course I did get out of there, and I called the wholesaler and let him know, and they profusely apologized. But I guess the point of that story is trust your gut. And my concern with that is, you know, we have people from all ages and all, you know, walks of life. And so, you know, that could have gotten real bad real fast. And if you hadn't announced, which at least I had the foresight to do that just with my gut saying there was somebody there. So I'm just saying, be careful when you go looking at these houses, even when there's supposedly no one living there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Frank, what did you teach us to say when we walk into a vacant house?
Why don't you tell me, Joe?
You walk into a vacant house and you first thing you say is, Jefferson County Sheriff. Hopefully that gets somebody scared if they're squatting there.
I like it.
Yeah,
We've
that's
done-
a good nugget. Thank you. And we all owe Frank 25 cents.
Yeah, we've done that forever. So the crazy thing about it is, by looking at all these properties throughout the years, I mean, we look at a ton of properties every year, but we've just learned that from doing so many evictions in the past is that it's best to just kind of announce yourself. And if you're announcing yourself in that situation, then more than likely that person's going to scramble because they know that there could potentially be some type of law enforcement in the house. So even though we're not misrepresenting ourselves, we just say that once when we go in, just in case.
I like it.
Hey, Joe. Also, Joe, what have you learned about, what was some of the things about vacant houses that you can see on the outside to figure out if they're vacant or not?
Usually if it's vacant, it won't have electric running to it. So there'll be a red tag on the meter, or the wire will be cut. The main wire, electrical wire running to the house will be cut. That's one of the telltale signs without entering.
Yeah.
So we know that.
Is there another one, Frank, that I'm missing?
No, I mean, I was just, so the red tag means off supposedly, and it was cut off because of LG&E for non-payment. The yellow tag means that the electric is off, but they were on good terms and they turned it off because they moved. Silver and green tags mean that the electric is currently turned on, and more than likely someone's living there. So now, in the situations that I've just talked about, more than likely the red tag doesn't mean that nobody's not there. They could be squatting, but that's just something good for you guys to kind of pick up on.
Donnie Atkins just mentioned that, he just got a quote from that guy on a flip from the electrician, so you just saved him a bunch of money. Just proof that networking and talking and hanging out with people, there's a lot of value in it. Can't wait till we can all hang out, though, right? That's going to be such a treat. Can't wait.
And I heard that he's not able to pull permits because of it. So if you were looking to get a permit pulled, I don't think you can pull them.
That's awesome. Good. That means
maybe that's why he took the money and didn't pull it.
Could have been. I didn't know that until afterwards.
Nick Schweitzer, he's a realtor at RE/MAX. He's got a good story too. Nick, tell us your story. Nick's a redhead. He was on my basketball team not long ago. Couldn't dunk, but he could rebound.
How's it going? I'm almost embarrassed to tell this story. It's pretty bad.
But it's good. It's worth it because these are the things that empower other people not to make the same mistakes.
When I first started out about, I don't even know, like 6 or 7 years ago, I was getting into some flips. This is actually a great part of town over by like South 3rd Street, Beachmont, DeSales area. But I was desperate, didn't know a lot of people, didn't have a lot of contractors. So just piggybacks off Joe's story to have expectations and rules for your contractor. So this guy was doing okay work, gave me the full sob story. Money is low, needed extra money, wanted to work a lot. Well, then his truck broke down and had no transportation, so that should have been the biggest, enough of a red flag. But then we let him borrow our work truck, so he literally had possession of our truck for days or weeks, was going back and forth, driving to the job. Then something else happened, sob story, and he got in a fight with his girl, whatever, and he was like, well, I want to work more. Can I just sleep at this house? And I have no idea. It was a vacant house. It was a nasty house. I didn't really care, but at the same time, like, don't do that.
It seemed fishy.
Yeah, so very fishy. He was clearly on drugs, so none of you have to worry about hiring him. I think he's long gone. But I let him stay at this house, and then, I went there 2 or 3 days later, and all the doors were locked. The front door was somehow propped shut. I don't know. Couldn't get in my own house. So then ended up breaking in my own house. He was gone. Some of the appliances were gone. So then filed a police report, filed a report for the missing truck. It was found days later at a Red Roof Inn in Lexington. So that's pretty sweet. So basically, moral of the story is I learned you can only expect what you inspect, and don't, no matter what these people's stories are, don't, I want to be a nice person and help people out as well, but it has to be professional line drawn. You can't, because I just looked like a fool. But ended up being a nice house and still a nice deal. But big headache. Learned early on in my career that,
You're not the only one. Eric Feller bought a car for one of his clients, or GCs too, and it worked out well apparently, but only because he didn't.
So it was being way too nice, and he just took advantage and clearly had a drug problem and just vanished. So
I'm too nice too. I get it. So. Okay, John. John's got a story too that we'll put Luke on.
All right, so this is one of those you don't like to share, but I'll share it anyway, right? Not a scary story. This is just you don't want to do this story. So I bought a couple of houses last year, of which this one that I'm going to tell you about, I thought was the better of the two, right? I knew they were going to be rough. They're the before 1900 shotgun houses, right? That's the thing you need to listen and pay attention to. If you're a seasoned investor, you already know this, or you will discover it. If you're not, then you really need to be careful with those older properties. So I bought, and I had a couple of these already, but I bought these two, and you see a little wrinkle down the side or whatever. Number one, instant problem. Okay, so you need to know going in, but this one looked pretty good. We got it all cleaned out, and this was, and this is one that was, had been rented, okay? And well, I won't even get into all that, but it had, it was my first and only, I hope, bed bug house. All right, so I went through the whole bed bug thing. We bombed it. We had the dogs in. We did everything. Well, then we got in, and we were going to make a little change, because you know how the bedrooms are, or lack thereof. So we went to make a little change. Then we saw what was going on and started pulling things back, and I realized, oh, this thing's a mess. And I just can't stand for things to not be right. That's me. So we start pulling back, and at one point, I don't put much on Facebook or share much out there, which I'm gonna try and change, but this is one that I could actually push my finger through the 2x4, all right, termites. So we gutted it. Long and short of it, we rebuilt this house. Literally every floor joist has been replaced. Probably 30 to 40% of the framing has been replaced. All the subfloor, of course, all the subfloor because of the joists. At the end of the day, we've got an excellent house, but we're way over. All right. The good thing is it's a hold. So right now we're refinancing. The good thing is, and I'll say the upside again, is we rented it. So we put it out there. That's just here recently, 2 weeks ago. The tenant moved in on Saturday. It's getting a top rent in the neighborhood, and it's a 2-year lease. So that's all good. He's solid, and that's the happy side of the story. We're in the process of refinancing it, but my burr is not a burr. Okay, it's a burr. Got to put a little money in.
Yeah. And those will happen too. You're not the only one.
Yeah. But I share that because, and I do my own inspections, and I'm pretty good. I'll just have to say, and I know what to look for in termites and whatnot. These old houses, and again, this is where I'm going to go to. These old houses are the ones you've got to be careful of because they're so stout, but yet they still can have termites, and once it goes, it goes. So if you see a little ripple, you see a little buckle, count on it. You've got problems just waiting for you. So anyway, just a little food for thought.
It's good that you mentioned that because Luke buys a lot in Shelby Park, and I feel like if you buy anything that was built in the 1900s, you just need to know you're going to have to replace floor joists, and you're going to have those kind of structural issues. So these little facts we should have a really cool check sheet about like these kind of things, because I think that would benefit someone. I'm not the guy to put that together, but I think it's a good information. Guys, wait, why don't you tell everybody about our KREIA meeting while we have you on here?
Sure. Okay, so by the way, welcome. Hope everybody's doing well out there. I know we all have questions. We're all trying to navigate. And speaking to Chris and the other board members, we realized that we're all in different situations. Mine's different than Frank's, different than Rob's, different than Luke's. And so we also didn't want to go another month and not meet. And so we decided to jump jump in and give this Zoom call. And we have an opportunity that we're leveraging through National REIA. So our National REIA is hooking us up to put on a call of up to 1,000 members, and they're producing it in the background for us. We're doing all the upfront work, but they're actually going to be working it in the background for us. But what it's going to come down to is we're going to try and give you all facts as we know them, where things are up to the, just a day or two before the meeting, so that you can make decisions. So we're going to try and touch on, the banking industry, what's going on in real estate. Rob's got that. What's going on in rehabbing? A lot of us want to know, is it hard to get cabinets? Is it hard to get materials? Yada, yada, yada. So we're going to hit all the different areas. What's going on in rentals? So far, we're seeing that the rentals aren't as bad, at least this past month, but that could be changing going forward. So again, it's trying to get you all some factual information, put the word out. You will have to pre-register. That way we can get you into the meeting, and that should be coming out here in the next day or so on the website, and then we'll try and get an email out to everyone. Also, I will tell you this, and you guys who read it can vouch for it. So I just finished reading the newsletter, at least the draft, and man, I'm telling you, it's loaded with good information. I mean, I read all of it, and I say that you've got probably 5 or 6 what I consider experts, what I consider veterans, weighing in on what's going on. I'm telling you, it's loaded with good information. So don't just set it off to the side, is my point. When you get it, read it, or get the online version, it's good info. So that's it.
Awesome. It's going to be good. It's going to be an actual production relative to these kind of things. So should be pretty neat, pretty professional. And we'll have that recorded too. So if you can't make the meeting, you'll be able to watch it after. And I think Eric was going to try to do something where you'll be on the Facebook page as well. There's just a lot of cool stuff going on. A lot of people working really hard. So we appreciate you, John.
Sure. Thank you. Hey, and by the way, maybe the next caller, I could even do it in this one if you have time at the end. I'll show everybody out there the blog, and they can go find all this stuff. So at the end, if you want, I'll bring that up and share it.
Perfect. Thanks, John. Luke?
What's up? How's everybody doing?
Gosh, Luke, you're getting a little wild, man, too.
Oh, yeah, man. You get, haircut, shave.
I don't know. My friend Reynolds is like, well, it's good that you can grow it out. Like, might as well keep it. So I don't know what story Luke is going to say, but if he doesn't populate one, I'll make him populate one. Luke, tell your story. Go ahead.
All right. So I think I'm going to share this food truck story, and some people.
That's the one I wanted. Perfect.
I think so. Real quick to recap before I get into the details, the lesson here learned is if you buy a house that has a car or truck or some type of vehicle on it, call a towing company, and most of the towing companies in town will tow for free to their lot. They will store it on their lot. They'll send a notice to the owners. They'll have 45 days to come pick it up. And if they don't, then the lot can legally junk the car or the truck without you being involved in the mess of what's going on. They'll send notices via mail to whoever the owner is. And I don't understand the process, but apparently that's how junking a car works. And don't do what I did, which is coming here because it was a mess. It was a nightmare. But anyway, so I bought a house from a lady, a lady that I had previously bought a house from. She told me her brother wanted to sell his house. So I went over and met him, and we agreed on a price. It was a probate situation. Wife passed away. There were she had 3 kids that were not his kids. There was no mortgage on the house. And we came to an agreement on price. And he was basically trying to cut them out of the whole deal. And so it was a mess because he was trying to not give them anything. And the way that they took title, there was no survivorship for him to get 100% of it if she passed away. So her kids, not his kids, were entitled to half of her half of the house. And anyways, so we figure out all this, and it's just even getting to closing. I've got everybody calling me, the daughters, just all this stuff about how he's trying to get all their money and all this stuff. And anyways, we got it all figured out and it all worked out. But then I had the food truck. I held $5,000 back in escrow, which if you ever close a house and it has a bunch of stuff in it, I always suggest trying to do that. That way hopefully they clean it out. And if they don't, I know that with buying off-market deals, sometimes part of the agreement is that, you get to leave everything, and that's part of the agreement. Well, this guy, he wanted as much as he could get. And so I was like, well, if you get all the stuff out of there for me, then I can do it for a little bit more. Anyways, so we had $5,000 in escrow for him to clean out everything from the house. And then he leaves me with not a food truck only, but 2 cars. So a car and a food truck, 2 vehicles. We get there, and the food truck sat there for 4 months, and I never heard anything from anybody. And I kept calling the sisters or the daughters, and they kept telling me, nobody wants a food truck, get rid of it. So I've got a worker that I was like, hey, can you junk it? If you want to junk it, we'll get it towed to your place and you can junk it. Well, he did something that he shouldn't have done after that, which was somehow he was able to get the title in his name by forging some title on the document. So there were two mistakes that I made. First, giving him. So anyways, about a month after the food truck's been gone from the house, I get a letter on the door that says, hey, where's my food truck? And this is about 5 months after we owned the house, and we were about to rent it. And so I was like, I don't know. So I kind of was like, what do I say to this guy? And I just ignored the letter because I was like, I'm not going to, what am I going to say to this guy? I already gave it away a month ago, and the guy junked it, I think. Well, anyway, so the cops show up at my worker's house with the stolen vehicle report. And they basically want to arrest him. And the guy whose food truck it was agrees to basically tell the cops it's a big misunderstanding if he just gives them the keys back. And so my worker's like, that's fine, I'll give you the keys back. In the meanwhile, my worker had also done about $1,000 worth of repair to get the food truck up and running and everything else. And so the agreement was the guy got his keys and everything, then he would be happy and go on his way. Well, then a day goes by, he calls me and he's like, hey, I want $1,000 for my time for this mess, or I'm going to press charges on you and your company and all the rest of it. And I'm like, oh my God. So anyways, I'm like, this is crazy. So I'm talking to my attorneys about it, what I should do, and talking to the cops about it. And the cops are like, it's a civil matter. He could probably cause you some problems and some headaches if you wanted to go through it. But, in the end of the day, I ended up paying him $1,000, which is awful. And we go to get the money from the, I'm like, all right, I'll get it from the escrow, from the $5,000 escrow holdback. And then it gets worse because somehow the escrow check had gotten not held at the escrow company. So there was no escrow check. So then we had to figure that out. And in the end of the day, the estate was still open, so we were able to go back on the estate and get the money that way. But moral of the story is, if you're buying houses that have vehicles, you need to make sure that there's either some explicit agreement where you are buying the vehicle, or that you get it towed immediately from the property to a junkyard so that you don't have to deal with the headache. Because the other car that was in the back of the house, I held in my driveway so that it was out of the way for about 4 months until this whole food truck thing blew up. And then I ended up calling the tow company and just telling them to come tow it to their place. And then they did. So I don't know. Don't make that mistake. I made a bunch of mistakes. I probably shouldn't have paid the guy $1,000, but I know some other people that have gotten sued from people, and it's just a nightmare. So $1,000 at the end of the day is, and then at the end of the day, it came from the escrow account. So, or the escrow holdback. So anyways, that's my story.
Gosh, what a lesson. Hey, Luke, while we have you, you're so full of great stories. Why don't you tell everybody about your killer closing?
Oh, the killer closing. Yeah. Okay. I know some people have heard this one, but yeah, so I was closing on a house. I bought the house next door to this shop, and this lady had that worked at the shop. She came over one day and was talking to me, and she was like, I want to sell my house. And I was like, okay, I'll buy it. Let me know where it is. 2 years later, she calls me and she's like, I'm finally ready to sell my house. And I was like, okay, great. I'll buy it and work up an agreement. Closing is the day after Halloween, All Saints Day. And we show up, my lender's there. They walk in, and the guy, the husband and wife, we shake his hand. I walk out of the room to go give a paper to the closing attorney or somebody. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then I walk back in, and the guy is keeled over at the closing table. His head's down. My lender is on top, as it's like patting him on the back, like, hey, what's going on, man? What's going on? And then my lender's like, he's not breathing. And so we're like, oh crap. So we pull him to the ground, pull him on the floor, and we're looking at him, and then we're like, oh God, we gotta start CPR on this guy. So I start doing chest compressions on this guy in the middle of Borders and Borders. Sorry, Harry. And everybody's freaking out. I told the Tammy at the front desk, I was like, call 911, we need an ambulance. And anyway, so we were doing CPR. I actually got freaked out after about 2 rounds of chest compressions, and another guy jumped in and started doing the chest compressions, which was great. And my lender was doing rescue breaths for the guy. And then about 5 minutes in, the guy comes back to life. He starts breathing again on his own, and his heart's beating, seems to be beating. And we're like, okay, all right. And then his heart stops again about 45 seconds later, and we start doing CPR again. And we were just everybody was freaking out. Anyways, finally, about 10 minutes into it, what happened? Okay. Yeah. So they're like, a doctor's coming. There's a doctor. He's coming. And so we're like, okay, great. We just got a little bit longer. This doctor's going to be here. The doctor shows up. He's got a stethoscope, and he's looking at him, and he's like, just keep doing what you're doing, guys. Just keep doing what you're doing. He's like, I can't do anything for this guy. Anyways, a couple minutes later, EMS shows up, and they hook him up to a machine that does chest compressions for him. It's like it goes around his chest and everything. They gave him a shot of epinephrine, I think, in his leg. And they're there for maybe 5 minutes doing that, and nobody was sure what was going to happen. Then all of a sudden, he started breathing again. And so, I mean, it was a very long process, but the guy ended up living, which is crazy, especially because he was out for that long. And,
what a hero you are, Luke.
Yeah. And so about 3 weeks later, we finally closed on it. And that's the other funny thing. I was like, hey, we can send a notary, mobile notary to your house. That way you don't have to come to the closing office again. That way we don't have to have any questionable, like any of this happening again. And they were like, no, we want to come in. We want to come into the office and do it. I was like, all right.
Round 2.
Anyway, so they came in and they did it at the office, and no problem, second round. And the guy looked completely different. He looked so much more he looked like he had so much more life in him. But even from when I met him, he just seemed that 30 seconds or so before the heart attack happened, he just seemed so out of it. And it just seemed like a whole different guy. So, but that was a crazy experience. So anyways,
I've never heard it. I mean, Harry said he had never seen that happen.
I don't know how that we were chosen for that, but the guy's still alive. So there you go.
What a lifesaver. I would put that on my business cards. Well, do you guys have any questions for Luke while we have Luke on? Luke's the man. Everybody knows him.
I don't know about that, Rob. I don't know about being the man.
Well, yeah.
I'm just a regular guy. All right.
Luke's just good at everything, and that's the problem.
Hey, I have a question for Luke.
What's it?
Obviously, I'm now in the same situation as you with having an Airbnb. What are you guys doing with yours right now?
So I've rented mine temporarily. I've got that big house that I have is actually 3 separate units. And so I'm lucky there because I'm able to split it up, and I've got 3 different tenants in it right now. And it's bringing in a lot less than it was, but it's covering all my costs and my bills, and I'm still making a little bit. And then I've got another decent sized house in Clifton that I found a family just through networking that they live in Manhattan, have 2 small kids, and they're, they don't want to be staying in the 26th floor in some high rise in Manhattan during this mess up there with their kids. So they rented it temporarily for a couple months, and kind of the agreement with them is they're just going to stay, until this whole thing kind of calms down. So, and I assume that, all my people I had bookings in May, June, and July, and everybody's canceled pretty much through May 31st, because that's what Airbnb's new regulation or new rule is. You can cancel, no penalty until May 31st. So we're kind of just just taking it, day by day with this whole thing and seeing how everything turns out. I've got another one, another Airbnb that we found through Rob, or a referral from Rob. He's got a friend relocating from Phoenix, I think, to Lexington, and they're going to come stay for 30 days in this Airbnb. And So I guess I'm just taking it day by day, man, trying to get them running when I can short term. I'm taking a lot less than I'm sure what they're worth because I'm just trying to cover my costs at this point, and I'm trying to keep it flexible. The risk I think right now with doing that is if these tenants know the laws and with, being able to stay somewhere for 45 days or something, and then I can't evict them because there's nobody doing evictions right now. I'm still taking deposits from people and kind of treating it like a normal rental, but there are some risks in what I'm trying to do, and I guess I'm hoping for the best. But I guess just trying to cover my costs. I know there's some people that are just hanging in there and hoping, for this to blow over. But I hear you, and I hear those people too, because it probably will. But I'm a very conservative person, I think, and so sometimes I'm a little bit more pessimistic about it, which is bad to say, really. I hate saying that, but there's a website called Furnished Finder that we've been using, and one of our tenants, we came from there, and it's essentially traveling nurses. So at the house on Oak Street, I've got 3 units over there, and everybody living at that house is a nurse right now.
FurnishedFinder.com.
FurnishedFinder.com. I think it costs $99 per listing, but you can find tenants on like nurses apparently, and we've gotten some hits from there for sure. I know a couple of people that have used it, and so that's what my plan going forward in the future is. If this lasts longer than June 1st, I'll probably throw my listings up on there and just try to keep them booked for 2-3 months with these traveling nurses until everything kind of settles down. So it sucks that we're making so much.
Have you guys ever thought about doing UPS pilots?
I haven't thought about that yet, no. And that's a good thought though.
I had not thought that at all either, Frank. That's brilliant.
Do you know, is there a way, is there a network for that or anything, Frank?
Get with me, Luke. I've got some connections over there still.
Do you? Okay. Awesome.
I'm going to have to get with you as well, John.
Sure. That's a great idea. I hadn't even thought of that. That's a great idea, Frank.
That's why we get together like this, guys. Big results from little conversations.
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up is because I know a lady that does it. She lives out of town, but she does it here. I don't know, the whole ins and outs, but she gets these guys like 4-bedroom houses, and they just rent the bedrooms out while they fly in and fly out.
Yeah.
Pretty lucrative.
Yeah, good deal.
There's a pun in there somewhere, but.
Hey, let me just throw this out too. Now, I don't know how, and Luke and I had texted a little yesterday. So there is an individual looking, and maybe you guys can just point me in the right direction. This came in through a realtor request, but they're looking for a house 3,500 square feet or higher to rent. And apparently they live in the Highlands now, have a 2,700 square foot home, and there's 5 of them. I guess they must have older kids, and they're on top of each other, and they're just wore out. And apparently they have the financial ability to jump in a 3,500 square feet or more home that has a little privacy for them to do some work. I was maybe tossing out the idea, and that's what I'd kicked to Luke about, maybe if you have an Airbnb, it might be a great temporary solution for them and for you. But they are looking for a decent sized place, and they are looking more kind of Highlands, East End. If anybody's out there, just get in touch with me, and I'll try and connect you up if you've got one that might work for you.
Are they looking for short term, John?
I'm not sure how long, but I get the impression, I'm thinking, maybe even a year. So, and the finances for a 3,500 square foot home, apparently the amount they're willing to pay is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to move out of our house that we live in now in the East End to buy the new one. So it'll be available here soon.
Are you going to keep it as a rental, Frank?
What's that?
You're going to keep that as like an executive home?
Yeah, my plan was kind of like everybody else's, like Luke and Joe's. My plan was just to, we were going to be out of this house. We live in Lake Forest. So we were going to be out of this house probably like 3 or 4 weeks before Derby. And we were going to rent it off the chart for Derby for a week because most of these houses go for $12,000 to $14,000 a week in here. So we were going to rent that while we moved into our new house. But now, since that setback, so now we're just going to actually just rent it out just as a normal rental.
Oh, call me. We'll talk later, because that might be. What's your square footage there? Well, just call me later.
It's about 4,000.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Frank bought that as a flip, and his wife was like, you know, man, maybe we should keep this one. And
keep it.
Good deal.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Well, okay. It's been about an hour. John, if you want to get on and talk about the blog, and then we'll ring off. And I don't have a speaker for Friday yet, so if you guys have topics, let me know. I'll see what I can do. And we've got so many resources here. Might not be bad to get like a Hampton on or Jordan Phone again, just talk about the market, because things have changed a lot.
Hey, Rob,
like 3 years we've been stuck at home. But
Rob, why don't you try to get some KREIA sponsors that provide products to see if they're having a setback on their products?
Good idea.
I was going to do that, but John Jones just brought up that we're going to have that in our board meeting or our KREIA meeting.
Well, we only get like 8 minutes to talk about it, so.
All right. Well, I'll diminish my 10 minutes, so we have 6 minutes of cabinet talk. All right, John, go ahead and tell everybody about the blog. You know how to do screen share and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah. Easy peasy. Here's the deal. Just so you all know, in the background, we've been really trying to crank up some of the media. And Lauren, if you don't know Lauren, please get to know who she is and thank her. But she's been working in the background with Nina and a few others. And long and short of it, the website's really starting to get very useful for resources for us. And I say us, I'm talking about all of us investors. And one of the nice things that she's just now implementing, I'm about to show you. And I think you're going to find that it's going to be a great way to keep in touch. So let me just go ahead and share this. And we'll go. Okay. Now, what we've got here, of course, I assume you all can see. Can you all see that all right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I'm just logged in here. What I was going to show you is when you come to the home page now, of course, you've got all the normal stuff, right? And usually she's got the latest things going on. And what we're trying to do is give you all some resources right now. What you can go to. We don't know all the answers, but we're trying to give you the places to go to find them. So that's what's here, and we're going to keep that up until we get through this crisis that we're in. We'll probably even be adding some more. I saw a couple in that newsletter that I'd like to see us get on there from one of the people shared. So anyway, if you come in here under resources, now you have to be I'm assuming you have to be, actually, I don't even think you have to be logged in for this. If you come to resources, you go to blog, and what you're going to find is yesterday, right? Whatever's been done in the order. So that was actually a few days back. So as these get posted, we're putting them on the blog. So you can go here and see everything that's been going on that Rob's been doing, folks been doing in the background. And they're in order. The meetings are going to be on here as well. So everything we're doing, there's other ways to get to it. And let me just show you that. Well, no, let me do one thing at a time. So on the blog, the nice thing about the blog, it's going to be a one place you can go and you can find everything that's going on. If we have media on it, it's here. Now, if you're a non-member, you're going to see some stuff that's out here like these things that are for non-members as well. So we're just sharing the wealth with all the investor community. But if it's member specific, like one of the main meetings or one of the specific meetings, it'll be on here. But when you click on it, it'll then require you to log in, or it will let you know that you can if you're not a member. But the nice thing is there's going to be a lot of information out here, easy to get to. Now, for you members, if you come into members only, you can go to videos. And so this is going to have some of the past stuff in here. So the KREIA Lunch and Learn, the updates from Mike Grin. So the past meetings are already in here. The blog stuff's going to be in there where you can come to these, okay? But it'll only let the members use it. But where I'm going with this is Lauren's doing a great job. So you can come to the videos, you can go to the blog, and to me, that's going to be the sweet spot. You come on there, you can see what's going on the homepage, right? So, you know, she's usually posting whatever the latest and greatest is. But if you want to go look at one, and I got news for you, I'm going to go look at the one that's not on here yet, but that I didn't get to see because of my login. Whatever the case happened. So you just come in here, you go down, you pick the one. Let's just do this. All right. So let's just pick this.
All right, guys.
There we go. Sweet stuff, huh?
Everybody who is here, it's going to be a little different. It's going to look like I'm distracted all the time, but I have to.
I went ahead and I know we don't want to sit here and rewatch it again, but where I'm going with that is great tools, great resources. There's so much good information at KREIA, as you guys know. And oftentimes we can't be there, right? That every once in a while you can't be in some of these because we're all busy. Now you're going to have a place you can go back and get it. No, that's right. You know, so it'll be a place you can go back and get it. So just get the word out. We'll try and keep promoting this. You can't over communicate enough, I don't think. Mm-hmm. And so this is just the first time we're trying to get it out to everybody. So thank you, Rob.
No problem. And send me topics, guys. Send me speakers if you have anybody you want to hear. I'm reaching out to some more like national people to get real hyper-focused on certain topics that I think would be interesting. But you guys are the best. I'll see you soon. Enjoy this weather. It's like a great day to get out and hammock. All right. See you guys.